Stop right there. Before you call it betrayal, before you call it abandonment, before you call it loss, ask yourself a deeper question. Is it possible that God is protecting something in you that you have not yet understood? Is it possible that what you are crying over was not leaving to destroy you, but leaving because it could no longer travel with the weight of where God is taking you? I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, but it hurt. Yes, it hurt. Nobody is denying the pain. When people leave without explanation, it hurts. When doors close that you thought would stay open, it hurts. When the conversations dry up, when the invitations stop, when the access is denied, when people who once celebrated you suddenly become silent toward you, it can feel like punishment. It can feel like heaven has forgotten you. It can feel like you are being rejected, reduced, and removed from the place you thought was your future. But let me tell you something. Pain is not always proof that God is against you. Sometimes pain is the evidence that God is separating you from what could not survive your next season. Sometimes the silence is not rejection. Sometimes the closed door is not defeat. Sometimes the distance is not punishment. Sometimes it is preservation. You must understand this. Separation can be favor in disguise. Not everyone who walked with your past is qualified to walk with your promise. Not everyone who knew you in your brokenness can honor you in your becoming. Not everyone who laughed with you in one season can stand beside you in the season where God begins to reveal what He placed on your life. And if you keep trying to drag everybody from yesterday into tomorrow, you will turn destiny into a crowded room full of people who have no respect for your assignment. Rejection attacks your worth. Protection guards your assignment. Rejection says, you are unwanted. Protection says, what is on you is valuable. Rejection tries to make you beg for a place. Protection teaches you that every place is not worthy of your presence. Rejection wounds your identity. Protection secures your future. You must discern the difference, because if you misinterpret protection as rejection, you will chase what God is trying to remove. That is where many people lose their peace. They keep knocking on doors God locked. They keep calling people God silenced. They keep explaining themselves to people God exposed. They keep trying to revive relationships that God allowed to die because those relationships were connected to an old version of them. Stop resurrecting what heaven buried. Stop begging for access to people who no longer have grace for your future. God does not only bless you by adding. Sometimes God blesses you by subtracting. We love addition because addition feels like increase. More friends, more invitations, more approval, more connection. But sometimes the greatest increase in your life begins with removal. God removes the voice that kept you confused. God removes the person who only loved you when you were small. God removes the circle that could enjoy your weakness but could not honor your growth. God removes the access of people who were close enough to touch you but not mature enough to cover you. If this is already speaking to your season, stay with this message. Receive it carefully. Do not listen casually. Do not treat this like entertainment. And subscribe only if you are serious about becoming the kind of person who can steward favor without losing character. Because favor without character becomes danger. Favor without boundaries becomes exposure. Favor without discernment attracts people who want the benefit of your oil but have no reverence for your altar. In the comments, write, "My favor needs protection." But do not write it as a slogan. Write it as a declaration. Write it as a decision. Write it as a line in the sand that says, I will stop begging for access to people God is removing. I will stop calling separation rejection when heaven may be calling it protection. Because what feels like rejection may be God's first act of protection around the favor He has placed on your life. And if God is protecting it, you must stop apologizing for needing boundaries around it. Now, understand this clearly. Favor is not fragile. What God placed on you is not weak. Heaven does not give cheap gifts. God does not manufacture something eternal and then panic because people misunderstand it. The favor on your life is powerful. The calling on your life is real. The oil on your life is not imaginary. But you must not confuse the strength of the favor with the maturity of the vessel carrying it. That is where people get destroyed. They say, "If God gave it to me, then I can handle anything." No, stop right there. That is not wisdom. That is presumption dressed up as faith. God can give you favor before you have the character to carry the exposure that comes with it. God can put a dream in you before your emotions are trained enough to survive criticism. God can place an assignment on your life before your discipline is developed enough to handle opportunity. The favor is real, but your process is still forming. The gift may be mature in origin, but the carrier must be matured in obedience. A seed has a tree inside it, but you cannot treat a seed like a tree. A seed has life inside it, but if you keep digging it up every day to prove to people that it is growing, you will kill the very process you are trying to validate. Seeds do not grow because they are applauded. Seeds grow because they are planted. Seeds grow in darkness. Seeds grow in hidden places. Seeds grow while people are walking over the ground and seeing nothing. And if you cannot respect the hidden season, you will sabotage the harvest season. This is why you must stop showing everybody what God is still forming. Stop digging up your seed because somebody demanded evidence. Stop exposing your process to people who only believe in what they can see. Stop letting impatient people pressure you into premature revelation. A womb is not a prison. A womb is protection. A baby grows in concealment before it can live in exposure. What is forming in you may be alive, but it may not yet be ready for the weather, the noise, the opinions, the hands, and the pressure of the outside world. Do not misunderstand me. Silence is not fear. Silence is strategy. Silence is not insecurity. Silence is wisdom. You are not hiding because you are ashamed. You are guarding because what you carry is valuable. Valuable things are not left uncovered. Valuable things are not handed to everybody. Valuable things are protected before they are revealed. A bank does not apologize for having a vault. A king does not apologize for having gates. A pregnant woman does not apologize for protecting her womb. So why are you apologizing for protecting your process? Immature favor attracts immature attention. Hear me carefully. Some people will love your gift, but hate your growth. They will enjoy your access, but resent your elevation. They will celebrate your struggle because your struggle makes them comfortable. As long as you are broken, they feel useful. As long as you are confused, they feel superior. As long as you are dependent, they feel powerful. But the moment you start healing, growing, deciding, building, and obeying God without their permission, their affection turns into accusation. That is why you need discernment. Everybody who claps for your gift is not committed to your growth. Everybody who likes your anointing does not respect your assignment. Everybody who enjoys your presence does not deserve your permission. Presence is not permission. Just because someone has been near you does not mean they have authority to shape you. Just because they knew you before does not mean they are qualified to speak into what God is making you now. Familiarity is not qualification. History is not authority. Access is not alignment. Some people were present in your pain, but they are not prepared for your promotion. Some people knew your wound, but they cannot handle your wisdom. Some people met you when you were surviving, and now they are offended that you are becoming stable. They keep talking to the old you. They keep demanding the old access. They keep expecting the old explanations. They keep reaching for a version of you that God has already delivered you from. And when God removes them, you must understand He is not being cruel. He is protecting the formation. Wrong access can damage a person who is still becoming. It can contaminate your confidence. It can confuse your obedience. It can make you explain what God told you to build. It can make you negotiate what heaven already instructed. It can make you shrink your language, lower your expectations, and apologize for convictions you did not invent. There are people who do not have enough faith to believe what God showed you, but they have enough access to make you doubt it. That is dangerous. You cannot let commentary interrupt consecration. Counsel sharpens you. Commentary distracts you. Counsel comes from people assigned to build. Commentary comes from people addicted to watching. Counsel carries wisdom. Commentary carries noise. Counsel asks, "What did God say?" Commentary asks, "What will people think?" And if you are not careful, you will trade obedience for acceptance and call it being humble. That is not humility. That is fear with religious language. Favor must be guarded during formation because you are still becoming capable of carrying it. You are still learning how to stand when people misunderstand you. You are still learning how to obey when there is no applause. You are still learning how to move without needing everybody to agree. You are still learning how to handle open doors without losing private devotion. You are still learning how to receive criticism without becoming bitter, opportunity without becoming arrogant, influence without becoming careless, and blessing without becoming distracted. So when God closes the circle, let Him close it. When God limits the access, let Him limit it. When God silences certain voices, stop trying to turn the volume back up. They may not be evil. They may not be your enemies. They may simply be connected to a version of you that no longer exists. And if they keep demanding access to the old you, they cannot be trusted with the becoming you. Guard your process like your life depends on it, because it does. Protect the seed. Protect the womb. Protect the instruction. Protect the peace. Protect the favor while God is still forming the vessel. You do not owe everybody visibility. You owe God obedience. And if He chooses to grow you in the dark, stop trying to drag your roots into the light. Let the roots deepen. Let the process work. Let separation do its job. Because when the fruit comes, nobody will be able to deny what God protected while you were hidden. Now, here is where discernment must grow up. Not everyone who likes you is aligned with you. Read that again in your spirit. A person can like your personality and still resist your purpose. They can enjoy your humor and still be intimidated by your hunger. They can love your presence and still hate your discipline. They can laugh with you, eat with you, talk with you, and still not have the capacity to protect what God placed on your life. Affection is not alignment. Affection says, "I enjoy you." Alignment says, "I understand what God is doing in you, and I will not fight it." Affection likes your company. Alignment honors your assignment. Affection can be emotional, seasonal, and convenient. Alignment is spiritual, disciplined, and submitted to purpose. Do not confuse the two. Many people like you as long as you remain familiar. They like you as long as you remain available. They like you as long as you remain predictable. But the moment your obedience begins to change your schedule, your language, your standards, and your appetite, you discover whether they loved you or whether they loved access to the version of you they could control. Misalignment always reveals itself. It may smile at first, but eventually it speaks. It minimizes your vision. You tell them what God put in your heart, and they say, "That is too much." You tell them you are getting serious about your discipline, and they laugh like discipline is a joke. You tell them you cannot go where you used to go, and they call you strange. You tell them you are protecting your peace, and they accuse you of acting different. Yes, you are acting different. You are supposed to act different when God is making you different. Growth that does not change your behavior is just information. Be careful of people who joke about your discipline, because their humor may be hiding their hostility. Be careful of people who keep inviting you back into habits that God delivered you from. Be careful of people who celebrate your comfort more than your calling. They want you rested, but not refined. They want you happy, but not holy. They want you comfortable, but not consecrated. They will support anything that makes you easy to recognize, but they will resist anything that makes you difficult to control. And watch what happens when you start rising. Some people are loud when you are struggling, and quiet when you are succeeding. They had advice for your pain, but no honor for your progress. They had energy for your crisis, but no language for your calling. They knew how to comfort your history, but they do not know how to protect your destiny. That is the difference. Companions comfort your history. Covenant relationships protect your destiny. Company is common. Alignment is rare. You can find people to sit with you anywhere, but it takes discernment to recognize who can stand with you when the weight of favor begins to show. Stop calling everybody loyal because they have been around a long time. Longevity is not loyalty. Time is not trust. History is not maturity. Some people have been in your life for years, but they are still not trustworthy with your future. They know your past, but they do not honor your promise. They remember your mistakes more quickly than they recognize your growth. They keep a file on who you were, and every time you step toward who God called you to be, they open the file to remind you of old evidence. That is not loyalty. That is surveillance with affection. Loyalty does not imprison you in yesterday. Loyalty gives you room to obey God today. Loyalty does not demand that you stay small so other people can feel secure. Loyalty does not punish you for healing. Loyalty does not mock your standards, resent your growth, or become offended when God gives you new instructions. True loyalty protects your obedience even when it costs them convenience. True loyalty says, "If God is calling you higher, I will not pull you lower just because lower is where we met." Now do not misunderstand me. This is not permission to become arrogant. This is not permission to become cold. This is not permission to walk around suspicious of everybody, treating people like enemies because you learned a new word called discernment. No, that is immaturity wearing spiritual clothes. Discernment is not paranoia. Discernment is not pride. Discernment is not isolation. Discernment is the ability to recognize difference. It is the grace to know who belongs in the crowd, who belongs in the circle, and who belongs in the room where God reveals the deeper thing. Even Jesus loved the multitudes, but he chose 12. And even among the 12, there were moments he only took 3. Think about that. Perfect love still practiced selective access. The Son of God did not explain everything to everybody. He fed multitudes, taught disciples, and revealed certain glory only to a few. Selective access is not hatred, it is wisdom. If Jesus could love everybody without giving everybody the same level of access, why do you feel guilty for having boundaries around what God is forming in you? You are not called to be available to every opinion, every demand, every emotional emergency, and every person who wants to manage your movement. Favor attracts helpers, but favor also attracts handlers. Helpers strengthen your assignment. Handlers try to manage your movement so it never threatens their comfort. Helpers ask, "How can I support what God is doing?" Handlers ask, "Why are you changing?" Helpers sharpen you. Handlers shrink you. Helpers cover your becoming. Handlers negotiate with your old self and try to bring it back to the table. You must know the difference. A helper will challenge you without controlling you. A handler will correct you only when your growth inconveniences them. A helper wants your obedience to increase. A handler wants your dependence to continue. A helper can celebrate doors they did not open for you. A handler becomes uncomfortable when God blesses you without asking their permission. That is why discernment is not optional in a season of favor. It is a requirement. The fact that someone likes you does not mean they are aligned with the favor and assignment God placed on your life. Stop being flattered by affection that has no reverence for purpose. Stop giving full access to people who only qualify for casual fellowship. Stop explaining your consecration to people committed to your former confusion. You can love them without letting them lead you. You can honor them without giving them authority. You can forgive them without giving them keys. Guard what is on you. Guard who speaks into you. Guard who travels with you. Guard who gets to hear the instruction before it becomes fruit. Because the wrong people will not always attack your dream with hatred. Sometimes they will attack it with jokes, comfort, familiarity, and concern that sounds wise, but is rooted in fear. Do not be deceived. If God is raising you, everybody cannot ride at the same level. If God is forming you, everybody cannot touch the clay. If God is preparing you, everybody cannot enter the room. Love people deeply, but discern access carefully. Be kind, but be clear. Be humble, but be awake. Favor is too important, assignment is too sacred, and destiny is too costly for you to keep handing your future to people who only liked your past. Now, let me take you deeper, because the issue is not only who has access to your life, the issue is who has access to your ear. Some people do not have to touch you to stop you. They do not have to fight you to frustrate you. They do not have to attack you physically because their words have already built a prison around your imagination. They speak so consistently, so casually, so familiarly that you begin to mistake limitation for wisdom and fear for counsel. Listen to me carefully. A voice can become a cage. A sentence can become a ceiling. A conversation can become a chain. If you sit long enough under the wrong voice, you will start dreaming at the level of their unbelief. You will start planning at the level of their fear. You will start obeying God with hesitation because somebody kept planting question marks where God put instructions. That is why God will remove voices that keep you small. Not because He hates the person, but because He loves the assignment. Not because He is trying to isolate you, but because He is trying to liberate you. Not because you are better than them, but because what He placed on you cannot keep growing in an atmosphere that keeps rehearsing fear. Faith cannot mature where fear is the language. Purpose cannot breathe where doubt is the oxygen. Vision cannot expand where every conversation pulls it back down to survival. You must identify shrinking voices. These are the voices that always remind you of your failure. Every time you take a step forward, they bring up where you fell. Every time you speak about the future, they drag you back into the past. They say, "Remember what happened last time?" They say, "You know how you are." They say, "People like us do not do things like that." That sounds like concern, but it is captivity. That sounds like realism, but it is unbelief wearing practical clothes. Shrinking voices mock your standards. When you begin to live with discipline, they call you too serious. When you protect your purity, they call you old-fashioned. When you guard your peace, they call you distant. When you stop going where you used to go, they call you proud. When you start honoring the instruction of God, they call you extreme. But obedience only looks extreme to people who have made compromise normal. Do not let a compromised person define balance for you. Do not let an undisciplined person define freedom for you. Do not let a fearful person define wisdom for you. Some people call it balance because they are afraid of consecration. They call it humility because they are afraid of boldness. They call it patience because they are afraid to move. They call it loyalty because they are afraid you will outgrow the room where they became comfortable. Counsel sharpens you. Commentary distracts you. Correction builds you. Criticism buries you. Truth confronts your weakness. Manipulation controls your future. You must know the difference. Counsel has the courage to challenge you and the love to cover you. Commentary only wants to express an opinion. Correction points you toward maturity. Criticism points you back toward shame. Truth says, "This must change so you can become." Manipulation says, "If you change, I will withdraw my approval." Stop calling manipulation love because it came from a familiar mouth. Stop calling fear wisdom because it came from somebody who has been around you for years. Stop calling small thinking protection because the person speaking it knows your history. Familiarity is not the same as fruitfulness. You call it friendship because it is familiar. You call it loyalty because it is old. You call it family because it has been around. But if it keeps you doubtful, fearful, carnal, confused, and disobedient, you must ask a hard question. Is this relationship producing fruit, or is it preserving bondage? I know what you were thinking, but they have always been there. Yes, and some chains have always been there too. Length of time does not prove health. Repetition does not prove righteousness. A thing can be familiar and still be fatal to your future. You can be so used to negativity that peace feels strange. You can be so used to being doubted that encouragement feels suspicious. You can be so used to small rooms that open doors make you uncomfortable. That is why God disrupts the sound around you. He will make certain conversations dry. He will let certain connections lose their taste. He will allow you to become uncomfortable in places you used to enjoy. You will sit at the same table, hear the same jokes, listen to the same complaints, and suddenly something in your spirit says, "I cannot live here anymore." That is not arrogance. That is awakening. That is not rejection. That is separation. That is God protecting your ear before your ear destroys your obedience. The enemy of your destiny does not always send open enemies. Stop being childish. He is more subtle than that. Sometimes he sends comfortable relationships that make disobedience feel normal. He sends people who laugh at what God told you to take seriously. He sends people who make sin sound harmless, delay sound wise, fear sound responsible, and compromise sound mature. He sends voices that do not openly curse your calling. They simply keep you emotionally attached to the identity God delivered you from. Because if the enemy cannot cancel your favor, he will try to corrupt your hearing. If he cannot stop God from speaking, he will surround you with voices that make you second-guess what you heard. If he cannot remove the assignment, he will try to keep you in conversations that make you too tired, too guilty, too confused, and too distracted to obey. This is why God cannot let you keep carrying divine favor while lending your ear to voices committed to your old identity. Your ear is a gate. Your heart is soil. Your mind is a womb. Whatever voice you keep receiving is planting something. Words are seeds. Some words produce courage. Some words produce fear. Some words produce discipline. Some words produce compromise. Some words produce faith. Some words produce regression. And you cannot keep praying for harvest while allowing everybody to plant weeds in your field. At some point, you must become responsible for the sound you permit. Turn down the voices that shrink you. Walk away from conversations that normalize dysfunction. Refuse to sit under words that make your obedience feel foolish. Stop rehearsing the opinions of people who have no revelation of your assignment. You cannot carry a new future with an old soundtrack. God protects your favor by changing your environment, but He also protects your favor by changing your sound. He removes the voice that made you doubt. He removes the voice that made you shrink. He removes the voice that made compromise feel safe. He removes the voice that kept calling you back to Egypt because Egypt was all they understood. Let Him remove it. Let Him silence it. Let Him interrupt it. Because when God is preparing you for promise, He will not allow Pharaoh's language to keep governing your imagination. Guard your ear. Guard your faith. Guard your obedience. Do not negotiate with voices God is exposing. Do not chase conversations God is ending. Do not grieve the removal so deeply that you miss the rescue. If a voice keeps pulling you back into who God delivered you from, it is not harmless. It is not neutral. It is not just talk. It is warfare against your becoming. And in this season, you need voices that call you higher, voices that remind you of what God said, voices that sharpen your discipline, strengthen your faith, confront your weakness, and protect your future. Because favor grows best in the atmosphere of agreement with God. And when God removes the voices that kept you small, do not run after them. Stand still. Listen again. You may discover that His voice was never absent. It was only being drowned out by people who had no permission to speak into your promise. But let me speak to the part nobody wants to admit. Separation hurts. Do not let anybody make you feel unspiritual because you cried when God removed someone. Spiritual maturity does not mean you feel nothing. It means your feelings no longer govern your obedience. You can have tears in your eyes and still keep walking in the direction God commanded. You can miss them and still know they cannot go with you. You can remember the laughter, the history, the conversations, the loyalty you thought was permanent, and still understand that memory is not a mandate. Stop pretending it did not hurt. It hurt because love was involved. It hurt because habit was involved. It hurt because hope was involved. You had imagined futures with people who are no longer standing beside you. You had plans, routines, emotional rhythms, and expectations connected to them. And when God separates you, He is not only changing your address book, He is touching your nervous system, your comfort, your dependency, your idea of safety. That is why it feels deep. You are not just losing company, you are losing a pattern. But hear me carefully. Pain does not always mean punishment. Pain does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes pain is the evidence that surgery has begun. The knife in the hand of an enemy is an attack, but the knife in the hand of a surgeon is mercy. The cut is not cruelty when the intention is healing. The wound is not destruction when the purpose is removal. And some of you are angry at God because you felt the incision, but you have not yet understood the infection He was removing. God will wound your comfort to rescue your calling. He will disturb your familiar to protect your future. He will cut what you keep cuddling because what you keep cuddling is quietly killing your capacity. That relationship may have comforted your emotions, but it was weakening your obedience. That voice may have made you feel wanted, but it was making you dependent. That access may have felt like love, but it was draining the strength you needed for assignment. Now, here is where you must grow up. Sometimes you are not grieving the person, you are grieving the version of yourself that needed their approval. You are grieving the you that could not make a decision until they agreed. You are grieving the you that needed to be chosen, called, validated, invited, and affirmed before you felt secure. You are grieving the old emotional contract where their attention became your oxygen. That is not love. That is dependency wearing the fragrance of affection. And dependency is dangerous when promotion comes. I want you to understand this. God often removes people before promotion because unresolved dependency becomes dangerous in visibility. If you need the wrong person to approve you in private, you will let the wrong crowd control you in public. If you cannot obey God without one familiar voice clapping for you, how will you stand when strangers criticize you? If you cannot survive the silence of one person, how will you handle the pressure of many opinions? Promotion does not heal dependency. Promotion exposes it. Visibility does not create character. Visibility reveals what was already ruling you in secret. That is why God does surgery before He opens doors. He removes the emotional hook before the platform gets larger. He cuts the unhealthy attachment before the opportunity increases. Because if He blesses you while you are still bound to the wrong approval, you will use the blessing to impress people God told you to outgrow. Do not call every delay denial. The delay is not denial. The distance is not punishment. The quiet is not abandonment. The loss is not proof that God forgot you. Sometimes the quiet is recovery. Sometimes the distance is detox. Sometimes the delay is God giving your soul time to stop trembling every time a certain person withholds affection. You are not being buried. You are being healed in a place where your roots can learn to drink from God again. A patient who leaves the operating room too early reopens the wound. And that is what some of you keep doing emotionally. God closes the door, and loneliness starts preaching fear to you. Loneliness says, maybe you were too hard. Loneliness says, maybe you should call. Loneliness says, maybe you cannot make it without them. Loneliness is not always a prophet. Sometimes loneliness is withdrawal. Sometimes loneliness is the old dependency screaming because it is losing control. When God closes a door, stop knocking because your emotions are uncomfortable. Stop rebuilding bridges God dismantled to protect your assignment. Stop returning to conversations that reopen what heaven is trying to heal. You cannot keep asking God to deliver you while you keep rescheduling appointments with what damaged you. You cannot keep praying for peace while revisiting the place where your peace was broken. That is not loyalty. That is self-sabotage with sentimental language. Cry if you must. I am not telling you to become stone. Pray honestly. Tell God it hurts. Tell Him you do not understand. Tell Him you miss what used to be. God is not threatened by honest pain. But after you cry, obey. After you pray, stand. After you forgive, do not hand the keys back to what God locked out. Forgiveness is required. Reconnection is not always required. You can release bitterness without restoring access. You can bless them without becoming bound again. You can love them without letting them operate on parts of you they helped wound. Purpose requires emotional discipline. Not emotional denial. Emotional discipline. There is a difference. Denial says, I do not feel anything. Discipline says, I feel it, but I will not let it lead me away from God. Denial buries pain. Discipline brings pain under obedience. Denial performs strength. Discipline practices surrender. And in this season, you do not need to perform. You need to surrender. Let God finish the surgery. Stay on the table. Stop grabbing the instrument out of His hand because you do not like the pressure. Stop asking for anesthesia every time obedience hurts. Some things cannot be removed without a cut. Some dependencies cannot die without grief. Some attachments cannot break without tears. But when purpose begins to breathe again, you will understand why God did not let comfort keep you contaminated. The pain of separation is often the surgery of purpose. It is God cutting away dependency so destiny can live. It is God removing the hand you leaned on so you can discover the strength He placed in your spine. It is God silencing the approval you worshipped so you can hear the voice you were designed to obey. So grieve, but do not go back. Cry, but do not compromise. Forgive, but do not rebuild what God dismantled. Because the same God who allowed the cut is the God who intends the healing. And when He finishes, you will not just be separated, you will be free. Now, after God cuts, you must learn how to guard the healing, because it is possible to be delivered from the wrong access and then reopen the door through poor stewardship. It is possible for God to remove what was draining you, and then you invite the same spirit back in a different body, a different voice, a different relationship, because you never learned the discipline of boundaries. Let me tell you something plainly. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are stewardship. Immature people call boundaries rejection because they only understand access. Mature people understand that what God gives you must be managed. Your peace must be managed. Your time must be managed. Your focus must be managed. Your obedience must be managed. Favor is not just something you celebrate. Favor is something you steward. Stop letting people make you feel guilty for protecting what God told you to carry. If God has given you an assignment, then you do not have the right to live without order. You do not have the right to let everybody pull on you, drain you, distract you, and define your priorities. Assignment gives structure to affection. Assignment gives discipline to kindness. Assignment gives boundaries to access. Because anything valuable that is left unguarded will eventually be mishandled. Favor needs structure. Hear me carefully. Anointing without order becomes exhaustion. Access without wisdom becomes distraction. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You can be gifted and tired. You can be favored and unfocused. You can be called and still confused because you keep giving sacred energy to unsacred demands. That is not humility. That is disorder. Some of you think being loving means being endlessly available. That is a lie from the pit of hell, designed to keep you drained, resentful, and distracted from obedience. Love is not the absence of limits. Love must have truth. Love must have wisdom. Love must have order. Even God gives access by covenant. Even God establishes times and seasons. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowd to pray. If the Son of God knew when to withdraw, who taught you that holiness means answering every call, absorbing every emotion, solving every crisis, and explaining yourself to every offended person? Peace is not the absence of people. Peace is the presence of order. Write that in your heart. Peace is not hiding from everybody. Peace is not becoming cold. Peace is not building a wall around your soul and calling it wisdom. Peace is the presence of order. It is knowing who has access, when they have access, how much they have access to, and what God has actually assigned you to carry. You need boundaries around emotional access. Everybody cannot pour their chaos into your spirit every day and then leave you to recover alone. Everybody cannot treat your heart like a dumping ground for fear, gossip, offense, and confusion. You can listen with compassion without becoming a container for every storm. Some people do not want healing. They want an audience. Some people do not want counsel. They want permission to keep bleeding on everyone around them. Discern the difference. You need boundaries around spiritual counsel. Stop giving spiritual authority to people who have no fruit, no discipline, no prayer life, no submission, and no reverence for your assignment. Everybody with an opinion is not a counselor. Everybody with a scripture is not a shepherd. Everybody who says, "God told me," has not heard from God about you. Counsel sharpens. Commentary scatters. Counsel brings clarity. Commentary creates noise. You do not need more voices. You need the right voices. You need boundaries around time availability. Your time is your life in measured form. When people waste your time, they are spending pieces of your life you can never recover. Stop apologizing for having a schedule. Stop apologizing for needing silence. Stop apologizing for working, resting, praying, thinking, building, and obeying. If you are always available for interruption, you will rarely be available for instruction. You need boundaries around private information. Stop telling intimate things to people who have not proven they can carry sacred knowledge. Some people are not evil, but they are careless. They will expose your process because they do not understand the weight of it. Show your wounds to healers, not spectators. Share your blueprint with builders, not critics. Every detail of your life is not public property just because someone is curious. You need boundaries around financial dependency. Love does not require you to become a permanent rescue system for people who refuse wisdom, discipline, and responsibility. Help when God instructs you. Be generous when generosity is righteous. But do not confuse generosity with enabling dysfunction. If your giving keeps someone irresponsible, you are not helping them. You are funding their bondage. There is a difference between compassion and codependency. And you need boundaries around repeated crisis cycles. Not every burden is your assignment. Not every emergency is your responsibility. Not every offended person is proof you did something wrong. Some people manufacture crisis because crisis guarantees attention. They do not respect your peace until they need it. They do not honor your counsel until consequences arrive. They do not value your time until their disorder becomes painful. You must ask God, is this mine to carry, or is this theirs to learn? Stop playing Savior. You are not the Holy Spirit. You are not the Redeemer. You are not the source. You are a steward. There is a difference between being used by God and trying to be God. When you carry what God did not assign to you, you will become tired in places where you were supposed to be fruitful. False responsibility creates real exhaustion. And many of you are not weary because of your assignment. You are weary because of all the assignments you adopted to avoid disappointing people. Now here is where people get offended. When you finally establish boundaries, some people will call you prideful. They will say you changed. They will say you think you are better. They will say you are not loving anymore. No, you are not prideful. You are ordered. You did change. You were supposed to change. You do not think you are better. You finally understand that obedience is better than approval. Some people call your boundaries pride because they benefited from your lack of them. They benefited when you answered every call. They benefited when you felt guilty for saying no. They benefited when your peace had no fence, your time had no gate, and your heart had no guard. So when you begin to steward yourself, they do not grieve your pride. They grieve the loss of their control. This is why some relationships leave after God begins to mature you. The relationship did not always leave because hatred entered. Sometimes it left because the old access expired. Sometimes the person preferred your availability over your obedience. They loved the version of you that could be interrupted, persuaded, guilted, used, delayed, and pulled backward. But when you became governed by assignment, the relationship could not survive the new order. Let it go. Do not chase people who only loved your lack of boundaries. Do not negotiate with people who require your disobedience to feel close to you. Do not keep proving your love by betraying your peace. The people assigned to your future will not require you to abandon God's instruction to keep them comfortable. Boundaries are sacred because assignment is sacred. Your yes is sacred. Your no is sacred. Your silence is sacred. Your focus is sacred. Your peace is sacred. Guard it. Structure it. Steward it. Because the favor on your life will require strength, clarity, obedience, and rest. And you cannot carry divine favor well while living open to every demand, every voice, every crisis, and every emotion. Protect the order God is building in you. Protect the room He cleared around you. Protect the peace He purchased through separation. Because when God removes people from your life, He is not just changing your circle, He is teaching you how to carry what remains. Now, hear me carefully. When God creates space, do not rush to fill it. The empty room is not always loneliness. Sometimes the empty room is strategy. Sometimes the silence is not absence, it is recalibration. Sometimes God removes the chair, clears the table, changes the atmosphere, and leaves you standing in a room that feels too quiet, because He is rearranging the environment before He trusts you with the next level. Stop assuming every vacancy is an invitation. Every empty seat does not need a new person in it. Every silent phone does not need a new voice on it. Every weekend alone does not mean something is wrong with you. Some empty places are evidence that heaven has been working. Some spaces are proof that God finally got your attention. Some quiet is not punishment. It is protection with no background noise. But loneliness will preach to you if you let it. Loneliness will tell you to call what God told you to release. Loneliness will tell you to replace what God removed. Loneliness will dress up the same spirit in a different name, a different face, a different conversation style, and say, "This one is different." Stop right there. Different packaging does not mean different spirit. A new voice can carry an old bondage. A new connection can repeat an old cycle. A new relationship can become the same distraction with better manners. This is where discernment must grow. If you do not heal from the pattern, you will be attracted to the pattern again. If you do not learn from the absence, you will invite the same disorder back into your life and call it comfort. If you do not let God rebuild your standards, you will confuse attention with assignment, chemistry with covenant, and availability with alignment. That is how people escape Egypt physically, but rebuild Egypt emotionally. Do not replace, restore. There is a difference. Replacement asks, "Who can make me feel normal again?" Restoration asks, "Who am I becoming now that God has my full attention?" Replacement wants relief. Restoration wants maturity. Replacement wants noise. Restoration can sit in silence. Replacement is afraid of empty space. Restoration understands that God often builds capacity in rooms nobody else can enter. This hidden season is not wasted. God may be using quiet to restore your hearing. You have been under so many voices, so many opinions, so many emotions, that you forgot what divine instruction sounds like. God may be refining your motives. He may be asking, "Do you want me, or do you only want people to make you feel chosen?" He may be strengthening your standards. He may be teaching you how to enjoy His presence without constant human confirmation. Because if you need people around you to obey God, you are not ready for the weight of what you are asking Him to give you. I know that is hard, but it is true. If obedience collapses when the room gets quiet, your obedience was depending on an audience. If your discipline dies when nobody checks on you, your discipline was borrowed. If your faith only stands when people affirm you, your faith still needs formation. So build privately. Do the work in silence. Rebuild your prayer life. Recover your discipline. Clean your habits. Clarify your vision. Stop announcing your pain as if attention can heal it. Attention is not healing. Sympathy is not surgery. Likes are not restoration. Go into the secret place and let God make you whole where nobody is clapping. The people God sends next will not rescue your insecurity. They will recognize your maturity. They will not come to babysit your brokenness. They will come into agreement with your order. They will not require you to shrink, beg, chase, perform, or compromise. They will fit the room after God has rearranged it. So do not panic in the empty room. Sit there, pray there, heal there, think there, Grow there. Let God rebuild your capacity there. Because the space He created is sacred, and if you fill it too quickly, you may block the very thing He was preparing you to carry. And when the hidden season finishes its work, protected favor becomes public fruit. Hear me carefully. God does not protect you in private so you can disappear. He protects you in private so you can produce without contamination. He separates you before He showcases you. He quiets the room before He increases the responsibility. He removes wrong access before He trusts you with visible influence. Because fruit that grows under divine protection cannot be stopped by people who were only assigned to drain the root. Now look back and understand the progression. The separation was not rejection. The silence was not abandonment. The empty chair was not proof that you were unwanted. Favor needed protection. Your process needed covering. Wrong access had to be removed. Voices that kept you small had to be silenced. Boundaries had to be established. The hidden season had to do its work. You thought God was taking people from you. No, God was taking disorder from you. God was taking dependency from you. God was taking confusion from you. God was taking emotional slavery from you, so you could finally stand in the weight of what He designed you to carry. Stop calling it loneliness when God calls it wholeness. God is not trying to make you lonely. He is trying to make you whole. He is not trying to punish you. He is trying to focus you. He is not trying to isolate you for destruction. He is trying to discipline you for assignment. He is not trying to make you suspicious of everybody. He is trying to make you discerning. There is a difference between being wounded and being wise. There is a difference between being closed and being consecrated. There is a difference between hating people and finally understanding that everybody cannot have the same access to your life. You are going to have to stop negotiating with removals. When God dismisses something, stop chasing it. When God exposes something, stop explaining it. When God delivers you from something, stop romanticizing it. Do not keep writing paragraphs to people who already showed you their pattern. Do not keep defending boundaries to people who only respect access when it benefits them. Do not apologize for obeying the one who designed you. Your Creator knows your assignment better than your critics know your feelings. Your manufacturer knows the pressure your future will require, and if He removes a part from the machine, it is because that part was not compatible with the purpose. Inspect your circle. Do it soberly. Do it honestly. Stop measuring people only by how much they like you. Ask better questions. Who strengthens your obedience? Who drains your peace? Who mocks your vision with small jokes and spiritual sarcasm? Who feeds compromise and then calls it balance? Who protects your purpose when you are not in the room? Who only enjoys access but resents accountability? Who celebrates your growth and who only tolerated you when you were easy to control? These are not small questions. Your circle is not just company. Your circle is atmosphere. Your circle is influence. Your circle is permission. And if you let the wrong atmosphere surround your favor, you will keep fighting battles God never assigned you to fight. Some people love your gift but hate your discipline. Some people love your presence but resent your boundaries. Some people love your availability but fear your maturity. They enjoyed you when you were scattered, apologetic, uncertain, and easy to interrupt. But when you became focused, they called you different. Yes, you are different. You were supposed to be different. Growth is supposed to change your schedule, your speech, your standards, your circle, your appetite, and your access. If nothing changes around you after God changes within you, you will eventually be pulled back into the same bondage He delivered you from. You are not random. You are not abandoned. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are being trained to carry something that requires cleaner hands, clearer ears, and stronger boundaries. Cleaner hands because you cannot carry holy favor while touching everything that feeds the flesh. Clearer ears because you cannot hear divine instruction while surrounded by constant noise. Stronger boundaries because you cannot steward a sacred assignment while giving common access to sacred places. This is not punishment. This is preparation. This is not rejection. This is responsibility. This is not God forgetting you. This is God forming you. And when God is finished forming you, your life will speak. Not your arguments, not your explanations, not your posts. Your fruit will speak. The peace on you will speak. The order in you will speak. The discipline around you will speak. The clarity coming from you will speak. The work of your hands will speak. Because when favor is protected in private, fruit becomes undeniable in public. People may question the season, but they cannot argue with the harvest. They may misunderstand the silence, but they will recognize the fruit. They may have laughed when the room got empty, but they will see what God was building when nobody was watching. So let the fruit come from a protected root. Let the harvest come from a healed heart. Let the public evidence come from private obedience. Do not drag old disorder into new doors. Do not carry expired relationships into fresh assignments. Do not force people into a future they do not have the character to steward. Forgive them, release them, bless them, but do not drag them. Forgive them, but do not become bound again. Release them, but do not rehearse them every night in your mind. Bless them, but do not hand them the keys to rooms God cleaned for His purpose. Walk forward with clean hands. Walk forward with a quiet spirit. Walk forward with disciplined affection, ordered access, and sacred focus. Protect what God trusted you with. Protect your peace. Protect your obedience. Protect your hearing. Protect the favor, not because favor is weak, but because your assignment is holy. And never forget this: when God protects your favor in private, your life will eventually produce fruit in public that no wrong relationship can stop. If this message confirmed what God has been teaching you, subscribe for more teachings that build identity, purpose, and spiritual responsibility. Then leave this declaration in the comments. I will protect the favor God trusted me with. Let it be your public agreement with private obedience.